So hello friends, today we will be starting with the left out topic, left out that small topic we had left yesterday in the last video. So I think that was the pulses alterance, which I did not taught you in the last video. So let us tell you about pulses alterance. Where is the yesterday's video, by the way? So pulses alterance, the pulse will be regular. The pulse will be regular. Pulse will be regular, but the beats there will be alternating. There will be alternating strong and weak beats. Alternating strong and weak beats. Okay, so that means it will be, there is some difficulty while we are palpating this, so it won't be so much prominent. You need to diagnose it by using a blood pressure machine. Okay, so you can confirm it by during the BP measurement. Okay, so how can you measure it? See what will happen between the two alternate beats on the sphygmomanometer on the BP machine. You will be seeing there will be a difference of 5 to 20 mmHg of systolic blood pressure. So there will be 5 to 20 mmHg difference, okay, in systolic BP between the two alternate beats, between the two alternate beats. Okay, so for example, this is the column of the mercury, okay, on the BP machine you have. Okay, so this is, for example, so these are the markings, for example. Okay, I'll be teaching you the practical BP how to measure in the, I think, the next class. So what you will do is, what you have a you are building the pressure. Okay, you are building the pressure. Okay, so what will happen while you are deflating it? While you are deflating the knob, what will happen? The mercury column, which was here ideally, which was here, for example, I built it more, so it will start coming down. Okay, deflating the pressure. Now you are measuring the blood pressure. Okay, once the column is getting lowered, you will hear which beat first. First beat will be heard on stronger beat. First a stronger beat. I am telling about pulses alterance. Are we able to understand? So first beat stronger. Okay, first beat stronger. Then first beat will become stronger, and then once you again deflate it again from this, then you will hear weak beats also. Then weak beats also. Okay, and after that you will hear doubling. The beats will get doubled. The beats which you are able to hear will become doubled. Sir, what is the cause of pulses alterance? Most common cause is left ventricular failure. Most common cause is left ventricular failure. Left ventricular failure will cause pulses alterance. Okay, so now listen. What will happen in left ventricular failure? That means, let me draw a left ventricle and then a left atrium. What is happening? Left ventricle is failing. Left ventricle is failing. Left ventricle has failed. What will happen? Well, the myocardial contractility decrease. Yes, sir. Myocardial contractility decreases. Will it decrease the stroke volume cardiac output? Yes, sir. Will the volume of pulse decrease? Volume of pulse, that will decrease. Okay. What will happen to the end systolic volume? End systolic volume will increase because no volume is coming out at the end of systolic. Okay. So very good, Tala. You have joined the class. Okay. And systolic volume will increase, and systolic volume will increase. Okay, that means and diastolic volume will also increase because it keeps on accumulating. So and diastolic volume will also increase. When your end diastolic volume increase, what will increase? Frank-Starling pressure, Frank-Starling mechanism, that is force of contraction will increase. Force of contraction will increase. I have taught you everything in the previous videos. It does not need any explanation. And diastolic volume is increasing. That means at the end of diastole, you are increasing the volume. That means that will put more coupling. That will make more coupling. So coupling of the things will happen, myosin filaments, and then you have a stronger contraction. Now, will the second beat become stronger? So is it alternating? First beat was weaker, then stronger, then weaker, then stronger. So with every beat, some addition and subtraction is happening in the blood column of this chamber. Are we able to understand, guys? So second beat will become stronger, isn't it? So it does not need to say you yes or no because you have learned it already in the previous videos. Okay. So this was the minor thing which we did not study, which we had left yesterday. Okay. I want to start with a new topic today, that is regulation of blood pressure. The most important topic, guys, most important topic, regulation of blood pressure. Okay, let us write a new topic, regulation of BP. Okay, so before that, I want to ask you a question. What is tone? What do you mean by tone? So you should answer fast because the people in the video also get irritated. Not use the internet. Don't give me. You should read the books. So it is basically a state of prolonged partial contraction. A state of prolonged partial contraction. I taught you in the physiology. Prolonged partial contraction. Who is causing this? By the smooth muscles of the vessels. This is your vessel and this vessel has a lamina. I have taught you everything. Tunica intima, tunica media, tunica adventitia. So tunica media has that muscle layer, more amount of muscle layer which is causing this smooth muscle cells. Smooth muscle cells. Okay. So this is playing the big game. This tone is playing the big game in the BP. This tone is playing the game. Okay. And that too, which vessels I have taught you, arterioles and smaller arteries. I have taught you, isn't it? Okay. So which things can increase the vascular tone? Which things can increase the vascular tone? Vasoconstricting agents. Which things can decrease the vascular tone? Vasodilating agent. Okay. So which things can cause this vasoconstriction? For example, sympathetic discharge. and humoral factors. I have taught you the humoral factors: epinephrine, norepinephrine, dobutamine, and chemical ions. What ions? Calcium concentration. Calcium ion concentration will see. We are revising everything. We have talked everything about this. Just giving you a review. If you are not able to understand these things, you should go to the previous videos. Okay, fine. Have I taught you already in the previous physiology of muscle that how calcium was causing contraction? There was calcium coming inside. That calcium was activating the calcium was coming inside by VGCC, isn't it? Can I revise for you? Can I revise for you? Because some people are new here. I won't give you the details. Just check that video, physiology. Okay, let me give you a simple. I don't want to make it more detailed because we are here more concerned about the regulation. So what happens that this calcium, there is influx of calcium. So how vascular smooth muscle is working is, your smooth muscle, this is your smooth muscle. It is containing what? It contains potassium channel. It contains calcium channel. It contains chloride channel. First concept is this. I have taught you this. Now, whatever is the concentration of calcium ions and whatever is the activity of myosin light chain kinase, that will influence, that is going to influence the contraction of the smooth muscles. Okay. If your calcium channels will open, let me say like this. If your calcium channel will open, what will happen? Influx of calcium will happen because extracellular calcium is there. Which channels? What is the name of this channel? VGCC, voltage gated calcium channel. So if you open this, intracellular calcium will increase. This calcium is doing what it is doing. Let me make it big. Let me make a smooth muscle like this. Okay, big smooth muscle. When it comes inside, it will stimulate the myosin light chain kinase. Myosin light chain kinase. It will stimulate the myosin light chain kinase. Okay. How? Phosphorylation. Okay. Okay. Phosphorylation of this happens. And then you have contraction. You have contraction. Also, this increased calcium is doing also another thing. It will increase. You have a sarcoplasmic reticulum here inside. You have a sarcoplasmic reticulum inside. Okay, sarcoplasmic reticulum is storing calcium. I hope you know. So this calcium, when you have increased the calcium intracellularly, it will activate this gate here. This gate is called ryanodine receptor mediated calcium channel. It will open the ryanodine receptor. Then this mechanism is called opening of ryanodine receptor mediated calcium channel. Mediated calcium channel. So you have stimulated this channel. There is a channel on this. So this ryanodine mediated ryanodine receptor will open this channel, and calcium channels will the calcium mediated calcium release will happen. This was called calcium mediated calcium release. This is called calcium mediated calcium release. Why? Because you bought this calcium from outside and this is stimulating these channels to release more calcium. This is further dispersing the calcium now. This is opening the gates and now you are increasing the calcium again. Are we able to understand, friends? So that means the cytosolic concentration of calcium increases. That means what will happen to this? This increases to such a level, such a tremendous level, that it causes opening of potassium channels, which is because of the calcium. Okay, which is because of the calcium. So you have calcium mediated opening of potassium channels. Calcium mediated opening of the potassium channels. Now what will happen in the potassium is opening? What will happen? Potassium efflux will happen. Potassium efflux will happen. Who is playing the game? Who is the main person playing the game inside? Who is the main person do you think is playing the game? Beautiful answer. It is the calcium. This is the guy. This is the villain, guys. That's why I circled it. Okay. Fine. So what is the name of these potassium channels? Anyone? What is the name of these potassium channels? VG or VGCC voltage gated. These are BK channels. What is BK channel? Simple word, big potassium channel. Big potassium channel. And through this big potassium channel, potassium efflux will happen at a higher rate. That's why big potassium channels. Which subunit is being stimulated? Anyone? Which subunit of BK channel is stimulated? Which subunit of beta 1? Let me write beta 1. Beta 1 subunit is stimulated. Okay. So what will happen if you are losing the potassium? Are you increasing the membrane potential or decreasing? You are increasing the membrane potential. So potassium efflux, more potassium efflux increases the membrane potential. What will happen after that? Calcium channel closure. Relaxation. Isn't it? Isn't it, guys? Very nice. Okay. So this is the mechanism what you are doing. Okay. Easy. So this was what we had learned in the physiology. Factors. I had taught you last time the factors. If you have attended my physiology lectures, membrane potentials, potassium charges, I have taught there. Okay. Where are the other students? They are not replying, guys. So let me go to the blood pressure. Let me go to the blood pressure. So what is blood pressure? What is blood pressure, guys? I have taught you already. Pressure exerted, very nice. You should not say pressure exerted. You should say lateral pressure exerted. Lateral pressure exerted by the blood column. By the blood column. Okay, very nice. On the walls of arteries. Okay. So this blood pressure should fluctuate. It should fluctuate within physiological limits. Should fluctuate. That is the property of blood pressure. Should fluctuate. Okay, please remember this. During systole and diastole. During systole and diastole. Okay. So whenever systole, heart is doing systole, it should change. It should fluctuate. Diastole, it should change. Okay. Now what is systolic blood pressure? Systolic blood pressure is defined as that maximum pressure of the cardiac cycle. It is the maximum pressure of the cardiac cycle. While as diastolic blood pressure is defined as the minimum pressure. It is defined as the minimum pressure of the cardiac cycle, which you can record. So systolic will be that pressure which is the highest pressure. So whenever you speak, sir, the systolic BP of the patient is 130, that means it is the highest cardiac cycle pressure seen right now. And if you want to see the lowest minimum pressure, so you will say, sir, the DBP is 80, 70 mmHg. So you should first understand when you are speaking something, it should mean something to your brain. Okay. Are we clear? So what is the normal systolic blood pressure? Normal systolic blood pressure is, so answer should be 100 to 119 mmHg. No. I am not talking what is normal blood pressure. No. This is what the difference is. I am talking what is the normal systolic BP. I am taking the numerator. You are talking about this. I did not tell what is the normal BP. I am telling what is the normal systolic BP. Normal should be 102. So you should write like this. So normal systolic BP is 102 119 mmHg. And what is the normal diastolic value? 60 to 79. Okay. Are we able to understand the difference? You blindly answer. Blindly answering. Don't answer blindly, my dears. Think what I'm asking. I'm telling what is the normal SVP. There should be a range. It's not that I will be seeing 120 every time. Okay. So there is a guideline for hypertension. Okay. Now every year hypertension means a high BP. I will be telling you the definition later on in the BP. But here I want you to remember is that why it is called a systolic pressure. First, I said it is the maximum pressure which is recorded during the cardiac cycle. Why? Because it is the maximum pressure which is being recorded, because systole is a high pressure system. Systole is a high pressure system. Heart is contracting. So the highest pressure which is seen itself in the systole, that's why it is called a systolic pressure. Otherwise, if I had seen this highest pressure of the cardiac cycle in the diastole, I could have called it diastolic BP of 120 or 110. Because this pressure, please understand this fact. You are not able to understand. You are directly blindly writing things. Why we are calling it? No. Exactly. But the meaning is something different. You have to understand in this way. Exactly. Contraction of ventricle. But what? Because this pressure is maximum during the systolic. That's why called systolic pressure. And systolic pressure is itself a maximum pressure. Can we relate 3 points? I am telling you systolic blood pressure is the maximum pressure recorded during the cardiac cycle. Since it is recorded during the systole, this maximum pressure is recorded during systole. That's why called systolic pressure. You got my words or not? And if I tell diastolic blood pressure is that pressure which is recorded during, it's the minimum pressure which is recorded during the cardiac cycle. Since it is minimum during the diastole, that's why called a diastolic blood pressure. Since it is minimum during diastole, that's why called diastolic blood pressure. Are we able to understand the fact? Things need to broaden your brain. Understand. Don't blindly watch any video and then write. You should read books, please. Okay. So if anyone, now I don't want to give you that classification because we have new JNC guidelines. We have new American Heart Association guidelines for hypertension. Okay. So hypertension part, I won't, if I connect it here, but for that you need to first understand the concept. Okay. So basically what is the hypertension right now guidelines? Hypertension, what do you mean by hypertension? Yeah, what is hypertension? Like you say someone having a high blood pressure, so what is the clinical definition? Yes, my dears. So hypertension is defined as a value. Hypertension is defined as a value. It's an elevation in the blood pressure from a normal systemic physiological blood pressure. So the definitions is there are some guidelines for us. So in 2018, we had an American Heart Association guidelines. If I talk about that, in 2018, I had a American Heart Association guideline, which gave a guideline that, please you can write in the separate box. This is for your clinical information. So American Heart Association AHC guidelines 2018, they propose that the normal BP, normal systolic BP should be less than 120 mmHg. If you want to say something normal, it should be less than 120 mmHg, and a diastolic blood pressure of less than 80 mmHg. Okay, this is all in mmHg. Should be considered normal. So see what's the difference of understanding. You are writing every time high and high. There are some guidelines which you have to follow. So they called in whom we will consider is a elevated BP. So they said elevated BP because every year guidelines will change. We have to follow the research. We are following EBM, that is evidence-based medicine. We are following evidence-based medicine. So we have to every time right now millions of people are researching, scientists are working, they are studying it hypertension. Some people are busy in epidemiology, some people are busy in the pharmacology, some are busy. So everyone is working and then giving us a full guideline of how we have to follow in the hospital. So what we do is American Heart Association 2018 elevated BP. So elevated BP was considered 120 to 129, 120 to 129, and DBP is less than 80. If person is having a systolic blood pressure of 120 to 129 will be considered an elevated BP, and diastolic blood pressure less than 70 or 80 will be considered elevated BP. So stage 1 hypertension will be considered when a patient has a BP of 130 to 139. 130 to 139 mmHg will be the stage 1 hypertension, and 80 to 89 will be the diastolic. If diastolic BP is 80 to 89. In the same patient, you are following this. You are writing 120 by 80 for the first year physiology people, and here you will be writing 120 to 129. So if it is 125 by 75, so you will tell it as elevated BP. You have 131, 133, 132 by 85. So stage 1 hypertension. Stage 1, and every stage has its own treatment. Okay, we have some goals like in the JNC 8 guidelines. In the JNC guide, what is JNC? Joint National Committee Guidelines for Hypertension. It gave us some target goal BP. It says if I say clinically, a goal BP should be less than 140 by 140 by 90 in the patients who are less than 60 years of age, and whether they have presence of diabetes mellitus or absence of diabetes mellitus, or they have a chronic kidney disease or not have a chronic kidney disease, should be the goal BP. As a doctor, you should be maintaining that patient's BP of less than 140 by 90. Okay. If there is an elderly whose age is greater than 60 years and does not have a chronic kidney disease or diabetes mellitus, his BP should be less than 150 by 90. Goal BP for elderly who are greater than 60 years but have chronic kidney disease or have diabetes mellitus or have both should have the goal of as a doctor should be less than 140 by 90. You have to maintain his BP by drugs 140 by 90, less than 140 by 90. Okay. So we will be using those drugs, thiazides, ACE inhibitors, ARBs, we are giving. For example, JNC guidelines says drug of choice for hypertension is thiazide. Okay, or they are saying if there is a hypertensive emergency, you should give nitroprusside, gestational hypertension, methyl-dopa. If there is a pregnant woman who is having a hypertensive emergency, hydralazine should be given. Okay, so that I will be telling you later. But stage 1 hypertension, this is for your information. Okay, since you are a first year MBBS, so I'm not going into that clinical medicine cardiology, but here I want to say stage 1 hypertension 130 to 139, 80 to 89 will be diastolic BP. Okay, this is the staging as stage 1 hypertension. Stage 2 hypertension, why it's not writing stage 2 hypertension. Stage 2 hypertension, this is AHC guideline. Please remember, I will be writing the JNC guideline also. So stage 2 hypertension will be, so please write in a Roman way, okay? Or you can write this way, it's not a problem. Stage 2 hypertension, if this is 130 to 139, this is saying greater than 140 is stage 2 hypertension and greater to equal to 90. Okay. Then we have another guidelines that is called JNC 8 guidelines. JNC 8 guidelines. JNC 8 guidelines. JNC 8 guidelines is Joint National Committee Guideline for Hypertension. Joint National Committee Guidelines for Hypertension. What is JNC 8 guidelines? In JNC 8 guidelines says a normal BP will be 120. It is systolic BP. This is diastolic BP. Okay, less than 120 mmHg and less than 80 dBp. Pre-hypertension will be 120 to 139, 80 to 89. Okay, so if they have a systolic BP of 120 to 139 or they have a diastolic, please remember this or. Okay, or, are we able to understand? And this also or means if they have a systolic BP of 140 to 159, so this will be stage 1 hypertension, or 90 to 99 diastolic BP. Stage 2 hypertension will be greater than 160 or greater than or equal to 100, will be stage 2. Are we able to understand, guys? This was for your information as a doctor. Cardiology is so beautiful. Okay, fine. Have you written it at a separate page this side? So I just got delineated to some other topics to give you an extra information. That's why I gave you. Okay, so let us come to. So you can write the JNC first. There is less time. Please write fast. Okay, done. So let us write. Let us talk about more about this diastolic BP and systolic BP. Systolic BP. Yeah, this systolic BP. If I take this systolic BP, systolic BP is mainly, what is systolic BP telling me? Systolic BP is telling me the cardiac output. Systolic BP depends on the cardiac output, isn't it? It depends on the cardiac output. Systolic BP, let us write clear, depends on the cardiac output. That means if systolic BP has to increase, cardiac output should increase. And cardiac output decreases, systolic BP should decrease. Simple. Okay. But the problem is that your effect of all these things is in turn depend on the resistance of your vessels. Okay. If your arteries are stiff, systolic blood pressure will increase, isn't it? As BP will increase. Okay. Because the cardiac, because the heart is not able to, it's not able to accommodate that cardiac output, and that's why that decreases. Okay, so if I talk about the DBP, DBP is tells me about the total peripheral resistance, TPR. So if whatever is the condition of your vessels will be the DBP, whatever is the condition of your heart, mostly we are taking it as a cardiac output. Okay, but we are at the same time telling that vessels can also affect. That's what the meaning is. Okay, so whenever I speak about SBP, you should tell me about cardiac output. When I speak about the diastolic BP, tell me about the state of the vessels, whether they are vasoconstricted or vasodilated. So if you vasoconstrict, vasodilate, that will be controlling your diastolic BP. Are we clear? Okay. So what is total peripheral resistance? Diameter of the blood vessels, the lumen. How much is the lumen? So we have two components. Diastolic BP will be, it will be, modulating that. This peripheral resistance will be modulating this diastolic BP. Okay. So what will happen if I increase the vasoconstriction? So if I do vasoconstriction, what will happen to that DBP? What will happen to the DBP, guys? Increase or decrease? My dear, if you constrict it, you should increase the pressure, and vasodilatation will, if you dilate this, pressure will decrease definitely. And which pressure? Diastolic BP. So dBP decreases with vasodilatation, dBP increases with vasoconstriction. Simple. Are we clear? Hypertension I've already taught you. What is pulse pressure? Pulse pressure is systolic BP minus. I have taught these things, so that's why I'm just writing it fastly. Systolic BP minus diastolic BP. This will be, what is systolic BP you are taking? You are taking it 120 and average, 120 minus 80. That is 40. So 40 mmHg is pulse pressure. So why are you, sir, always telling us about this pulse pressure? So it's not that it will be 40. There will be a variation. It can be 20 to 50 mmHg. So don't think that 40 is the, something you have to remember. I mean the average. So basically, this is the pressure which is maintaining your pulsatile, pulsatile way of blood flow. Okay, because it's only the pulsatile way that your blood vessels, it's only the pulsatile way that you can perfuse. What is perfuse? You can supply the blood to the tissues. It's only by this way. That's why pulse pressure is important. Okay, which pressure helps in the forward movement of blood? You are saying, sir, the blood is moving forward. Which pressure? It is the mean arterial pressure. This mean arterial pressure is helping. Mean arterial pressure is helping in the forward movement of blood. Forward movement of blood. Okay. What is the value of mean arterial pressure? Already discussed in previous videos. MAP is equal to diastolic BP plus 1/3 of pulse pressure. So that means when the question comes, what is the MAP? You have to derive the PP first. So derive the PP first. I have taught you systolic BP minus diastolic BP, and then substitute this value here, and then you will get the answer of MAP. You will get the value of MAP. Around 75 to 105 mmHg will be the normal value. This is the normal value, 75 to 105 mmHg. Okay. So what is basal blood pressure? Basal blood pressure. Basal blood pressure means a BP which is being recorded in basal state. That means I have to tell what is the basal state. Basal state means, please remember, basal state means a state in which a person, a subject, is in full physical and mental rest after 12 hours of fasting. After 12 hours of fasting. A subject, we are taking that person, the person who is under study. A subject which is in a full physical and mental rest after 12 hours of fasting. Okay. So just it's a term that you have to remember. Okay. So what is the clinical? If you want to clinically find it, how will you find it? What we do is clinically, if you want to check the basal, what we do, we don't keep the person fasting for 12 hours. Okay. What we do is we tell the person to have a physical rest and a mental rest, physical and mental rest for 20 minutes or 10 to 20 minutes, you can write, in supine position. Supine position. This will be called a resting BP. After that, the BP which is recording will be the resting basal BP. Are we clear with this? resting basal BP. Okay. Do we know that we had discussed everything about the myocardial contractility, things increasing after load, preload, Starling mechanism, caffeine, barbiturates, hypoxia, hypercapnia, positively inotropic agents, negatively inotropic agents, positively chronotropic agents, negatively dromotropic agents, negatively chronotropic agents. We said everything in the heart rate itself. Okay, uh, that you can add here. Okay, that you can add. So what factors will be affecting? That is preload. You have to change preload. I have already taught you how to change a preload. Afterload. So these are the factors which will be affecting the cardiac output that I have already told you, isn't it? Now I go to the regulation of BP. Okay, this was all the background which I had to tell you. Important. Okay, what is okay? By the way, what is the pregnancy state in the cardiac output? So I want to just add one line for you. What is the pregnancy state? In the pregnancy state, what is the cardiac output status? Cardiac output increases in pregnancy because of increased blood volume. Because of increased blood volume in the pregnancy. Okay, but pulse pressure increases. Pulse pressure increases in pregnancy. Okay, what about the diastolic BP? Diastolic BP, please, this is an important point from your gynecology point of view and obstetrics. DBP will decrease. Why? Because the vessels get vasodilated. Who dilates the vessels? Important point, progesterone. Because progesterone is high in the pregnancy, progesterone has a vasodilatory effect. So what will happen to the diastolic BP? Increase or decrease? So this is what they are not teaching you. They are telling you some, I don't know what they say. Pregnancy is never a hypertensive state, my dears. If it is a hypertensive state, then it will be a pre-eclampsia, eclampsia condition. And you will be killing the fetus. We are not here to we are not here to kill people. We are here to save them. To do no harm is our duty. And for that, we need to have a good understanding of the basics. Okay, so remember, diastolic BP will decrease. So you have a pulse pressure is increased, but diastolic BP decreases. Okay, so remember, BP in total will decrease. Okay, are we clear? So rest you can relate from the back. Progesterone, see, okay, some people are not able to understand. This is progesterone. Since in pregnancy, progesterone is high, progesterone goes to the smooth muscles. In the smooth muscles, it will be doing the same thing, relaxation. Now, if you are relaxing, what will happen? Which has a relation? Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay. That's why total BP will decrease. Okay. Yeah. So what will happen? Yeah. So what will happen? Relaxation is happening. Relaxation is happening. So relaxation happens. That means vessel is getting vasodilated. And if I decrease, if I do vasodilatation, what will decrease? I have taught in the above DBP. I told you peripheral resistance. This is the resistance. So you have decreased the resistance. If you decrease the resistance, you are affecting the DBP. That's why I told you diastolic BP will decrease in pregnancy. Are we able to understand, guys, now? Crystal clear, isn't it? So these are interrelated quantities which you have to substitute. Okay. Most significant here is the diastolic BP. Why? Because progesterone is having an effect on the vessel. That's why I'm telling only about the diastolic BP for you. Okay. Now we have to understand the regulation of blood pressure. Okay. Regulation of blood pressure. That was the topic we had to discuss. But for that, we needed an important concept, this understanding of all these things. Then only you can understand the BP. Okay. To start that, we have various mechanisms to regulate the BP. Okay, if you want to regulate arterial blood pressure, we have various mechanisms for that. We have a short-term regulation, we have a long-term regulation. Okay, so I will be writing many regulations here. Okay, so let us write. We have so regulation of arterial blood pressure, regulation of arterial blood pressure. We have the rapidly acting mechanisms. What they do is they are directly teaching you. I have seen some people, they are directly putting the RAS, renin angiotensin aldosterone system. They are directly teaching two things. But there are so many mechanisms which are happening at the same time. It's not that you will directly say RAS is there, renin angiotensin aldosterone system is there. No. So rapidly acting mechanism. Then we have intermediate acting mechanisms. Then we have long-term mechanisms. Important topic, I can say the very important topic from cardiac physiology, regulation of arterial BP. This is what you will be doing with the patient of hypertension. You don't know the BP, who is controlling, how you can understand the disease then, isn't it? So this rapidly acting mechanism means, remember my words, the mechanism, many books will be writing in, I will be coming to a common, okay? So rapidly acting will be that mechanism which is acting within seconds to minutes. So second to minute will be the rapidly acting. Okay. Intermediate will be minutes to hours. Minutes to hours. Make life easy. Long-term mechanism will be 3 to 10 days. Are we clear? Are we clear with this concept? Isn't it easy now? Once we describe crystal clear, then we can understand the BP. Otherwise, you will get lost everywhere. Okay. I was myself lost, by the way, in my first year. What is the regulation? Who is regulating it? Then reading so many books, you get an understanding of the thing. A rapidly acting mechanism is within seconds to minutes. Intermediate acting mechanism, minutes to hours. Long-term mechanism, 3 to 10 days. Rapidly acting mechanism will be by, please write, number 1, baroreceptor reflex. Cardiovascular physiology. Cardiovascular physiology is basically the largest part of the physiology. Okay. So, it is to be read in detail. Okay. Baroreceptor reflex. Chemoreceptor reflex. Chemoreceptor reflex. Third, CNS ischemic response. CNS ischemic response. Number 4, epinephrine. Okay, who secretes epinephrine? Adrenal medulla. Adrenal medulla, not brain medulla, please. Adrenal medulla, okay? Adrenal medulla, adrenal gland. Intermediate acting mechanism. This is by number 1. Who can tell us how to intermediately? Who is intermediate acting? Yeah, who is intermediately acting? Capillary fluid shift mechanism. Second, stress relaxation plus reverse stress relaxation. Now your renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. Not aldosterone. I won't write aldosterone. I should write renin, angiotensin, vasoconstriction. Just this. Renin, angiotensin mediated. I should write mediated vasoconstriction. And then we go to long term. Long term will be renal fluid homeostasis. Renal fluid homeostasis by what? ADH. Atrial natriuretic peptide. And aldosterone. Okay. And you have now all the RAS here. Are we clear the concept? What is the concept? Guys, never think of RAS. First, you should identify what is the mechanism. Is it a rapid or is it a long term? Okay. So please write here only. Please write here only. This baroreceptor is most sensitive. Okay. To pulse pressure. It is most sensitive to pulse pressure. After that, which is most sensitive? After that most sensitive will be mean arterial pressure. Okay, mean arterial pressure will be the most sensitive, but this is the most sensitive. Which is the most rapidly acting mechanism? Dash. This is again the most rapidly acting. This chart should be on the tip of your tongue, guys. Most rapidly acting. Mechanism. Who will be responsible for increasing the blood pressure? If the blood pressure is falling, which system will be producing the maximum blood pressure increase? It will be RAS. This will increase maximum blood pressure. What is the next? CNS. If there is no option in the exam, max BP, then take this. Okay, then take this. So this will be the next, which will be increasing. So what is the first? This. If no option, then this. CNS ischemic response. Okay, I'm making life easy so that you remember. Okay. So this RAS is, let me write the full meaning of RAS. Renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. Renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. This is the full form. Okay. Renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. Renin, it's a whole system which is working together. That I will be giving a big lecture on this, a full 1 hour lecture on this, to give you the drugs, to teach you the diseases at the same time. Okay. Renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. Hey guys. So this baroreceptor mechanism, by the way, how is it working is, so can you tell me which of the following is short term? Are neural mechanisms short term, or neural mechanisms are short term, isn't it? Neural, all neuro, reflex, response, epinephrine, all neural. So that's why we say neural are short term. So short term regulation mainly neural mechanisms. But can you see long term has hormones also? Can we see long term as hormones? Guys, see, I'm making you to visualize. Everything should be conceptual. Hormones, 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 hormones. So that's why we say long term regulation is hormonal. Long term regulation is I'm using different strokes to write, okay? Long-term regulation is hormonal plus neural. I loved calligraphy, really. Hormonal and renal. Hormonal and renal, okay? Best design for you, okay? So that you remember. Okay, guys? So this is short term is neural. Renal isn't hormonal. Yes, renal will come in this. I'm telling you combo. I'm telling combo. What I wrote? I wrote combo. Which renal? What is the renal? Where is the renal? Where is the renal in neural? Where is the renal? In rapidly, it is neural only. Short term is neural. Long term will be renal. Long term will be renal because renin from the renal system. I have taught in the physiology. Okay. So yeah. Now neural mechanism, that means you are using some sympathetic activity and then you are using some parasympathetic activity. You are using the vasomotor center. You are using the cardiac inhibitory center. You are using the cortical control, hypothalamic control. So that means we have to discuss them. Okay. What is baroreceptor? Baroreceptor, can anyone of you tell me? Yeah, pressure receptor. What is that? Baroreceptors. Baroreceptors are basically pressoreceptors. They are pressoreceptors. The nature of these receptors is it is a stretch receptor. Stretch receptor. Where is it present? Wherever you have a large systemic artery, they will be present there. Large systemic artery. So large systemic artery. Large systemic artery. Okay. So in their walls, you will have some stretch receptors. Let me make stretch receptor. Let me make stretch receptor like neuron. Okay. We have stretch receptor here. Receptor. Okay. Stretch receptor on the walls. Okay. On the walls. Basically in the walls. Okay. In the walls, we have some receptors here. We have some receptors in the blood vessels of large arteries. But see, this is the word which I said, large artery. But which place has more amount of this? That will be the another question. First is these are present in every large systemic artery, but which place they are mostly present. So for this purpose, that's why they are writing in the books two main areas. Two main areas. One is internal carotid artery. My dear C, you are writing, yeah, very nice. Carotid sinus, yeah, exactly. Very nice. Beautiful answer. So internal carotid artery, I will be telling this, but don't write vagal because vagus is, don't tell the mediation. First, you should understand what a receptor is. Then you can understand it. Very, very nice. So carotid sinus and aortic arch, very nice. Beautiful. So internal carotid artery. In the walls of internal carotid artery, you know that carotid gets bifurcated. Do we know? Carotid gets bifurcated. There is a bifurcation of carotid artery, internal carotid artery, isn't it? So in the internal carotid artery, you have the walls of the internal carotid artery will be having receptors, will be having, first you should say what is carotid sinus. So what is carotid sinus? I should go into anatomy. Carotid sinus is that region. So if they ask you what is carotid sinus, you will say carotid artery. No, that's not a definition. Carotid sinus is basically the region above the carotid bifurcation. Above the carotid bifurcation, if you have something that is called carotid sinus, which I will be making for you. Okay. So above the, so in the internal carotid artery, you are seeing in the walls of internal carotid artery, but at a region that is called carotid sinus. Should understand first. Carotid sinus. This carotid sinus is just above, slightly above, you can say, which is present above the bifurcation of carotid. Okay, this place is called the carotid sinus, sinus sort of a thing. And next receptor where we can see them is aortic sinus. Aortic sinus is the region around the wall of aortic arch of aorta. So aortic arch. Okay, and these, the nature of the nerves which are present here are called spray type nerve endings. There are spray type nerve endings on this, in the walls of this aortic sinus. And as for spray, as for stretch, stretch is baroreceptor. That's what you have to remember. As for spray, as for stretch, as for spray, as for stretch, stretch. Okay, stretch. Fine. Now let us make a diagram for you to make your life easy. If I make a small heart, I should make a big heart here. If I see a heart, and this is the arch of aorta which is coming, this is the arch of aorta. So you have aortic baroreceptors. This is your aortic baroreceptors. Aortic baroreceptors. Pressure receptors on the wall. Okay, you have pressure receptors, aortic baroreceptors. Fine. And this is your internal carotid. Let us make carotid. Now this is the place where you see carotid body. Bifurcation. Can we see the bifurcation? Can we see the bifurcation of this carotid? Yes, sir. So at the region of bifurcation, I have this carotid. I have this carotid body. Carotid body. Okay. And here also I will be drawing this carotid. Carotid body. Okay. And then we have a nerve. That nerve is called Herring's nerve. We have a nerve. That nerve is called Herring's nerve. You should understand anatomy, my dears. We have Herring's nerve. So we have Herring's nerve. Herring's nerve. This Herring nerve is going to be connecting the glossopharyngeal nerve. Glossopharyngeal nerve, guys. Glossopharyngeal nerve. Glossopharyngeal nerve. And then this glossopharyngeal is going into dash. Where should this glossopharyngeal join? Medulla. Then it goes into the medulla. That medulla is called nucleus of tractus solitarius. Wow, God is so beautiful. He is so beautifully designed, really. He has beautifully designed. Nucleus of tractus solitarius, NTS, medulla. Let me write nucleus of tractus solitarius. Okay. So what happens after that is the suspense for tomorrow. Okay, like movies. So we'll be continuing after this tomorrow. Okay. So you can draw this, you can take a screenshot while you are making. I will make clear it for you. Fine. So see you all. Take care. Bye bye.